Our first panelist is Sariah Masterson. She's from marketing to operations to office reconstruction. The coding campus trainings would not run on time without Sariah's entrepreneurial and organization skills. In everyday life, she enjoys camping, reading, and playing with her 40 Teddy. Next up is Sunny Washington. Sunny began her career as a bank manager for U.S. Bank. In 2001, she started working with the ed tech company Centricorp, where she launched a visual literacy program in over 80 countries. In 2009, she was introduced to the co-founders at Instructure. After seeing a demo of their LMS, she was convinced that this would be a game changer in the market. In January 2010, she joined Instructure as employee 7. During her time at Instructure, she assisted in building sales, business development, account management, and marketing teams. In April 2014, Sunny was hired by Spire, a space satellite company out of San Francisco, to build Ardusat, an ed tech company focused on delivering STEM resources to spark student innovations. This year, they launched a program where students will be able to run experiments on the satellites that Spire builds and launches into space. February 2015, Ardusat raised $1 million in seed funding and has implemented their program in over 50 schools. Julie Johnsson is with the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, a network of businesses seeking to further their collective interest while advancing those of our community. The Salt Lake Chamber stands as the voice of business, supporting members' success while championing community prosperity. Julie is a coordinator with the Salt Lake Chamber's Education Initiative. It is a movement called Prosperity 2020. Julie holds a Bachelor's of Science in Urban Planning from the University of Utah. She worked as a research analyst at the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, along doing demographic and economic analysis through the 1990s. During 2000 to 2010, Julie engaged in work as a school volunteer, as an aide to students with learning disabilities and English language learners, and as a teacher's aide and an elementary school librarian. This panel will be moderated by Shireen, Hosseini, editor at WhiteHat magazine.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, so let's begin. Why don't you just repeat your name and a little bit about your organization and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you. My name again is Sariah Masterson. I work with Coding Campus. And we are is the next one on?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm Sariah Masterson. I work with Coding Campus. I help to found this company. What we do is we teach people web development and work mostly with adults and teach computer programming. So I personally am really a strong advocate for getting more women involved with coding and STEM. I am excited to be one of the executives in my company, especially in an industry where there are very few women leading in. I just think those are computer science in general.
Hi, I'm Julie Johnsson, and I'm with Prosperity 2020, which is a movement led out of the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce. And it's a statewide initiative to improve education outcomes so that our future workforce will be better prepared to take on jobs in the future. So we're very interested, it's a group of business leaders that are very interested in making sure that Utah's future prosperity continues to be driven by a quality workforce. And that's what our successes have been based on. And so these business leaders were getting warning signs about some of the outcomes, and they said, we need to get together, make sure that our education institutions are going to provide the product that we need in the future. So it's kind of a high-level idea that you're improving education outcomes in the state, but then it comes down to individual actions that can make a difference. So I'm excited to be here and admire all the talent that's around me, so thanks for having me.
Yes, and I'm Sunny Washington, so I'm the president of Ardusat. We're a startup where we provide provide students with the opportunity to run their code in space and collect data from Earth. And I'm personally passionate about this, not just being a woman, but I have an 8-year-old daughter, and so I want her to have a different experience than I did trying to get into this tech industry. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So right now we've talked a lot about how a lot of girls are thinking, especially in Utah, that they don't need college, they don't need to go to college, that it's just not worth it, especially in this economy. So do you guys feel that that's true? And with the different kind of online and community programs that are out there, do you feel like there are different paths to take that would be more worthwhile, or is it still definitely getting women into college should be the first step?
I'll go first. Actually, I have been looking at a lot of the research that Susan Madison talked about today. And of course, we've been hearing about, is college a great return on investment? If you invest in college, are you going to get the kind of job that you need to pay back your bills that you incurred in college? And the research is showing us that, yes, it does pay off. If you have a college degree, your chances of having higher wages are higher. You're less likely to be unemployed, and you're less likely to be in poverty. And it's especially true for women. And so, yes, it's still a good investment to go into college, and there are a lot of alternatives, like online learning. And as our teacher told us earlier, learning is different today. So online learning, certificates, those things are viable options that will pay off. So.
Well, I'm wondering, you might have some interesting opinions, right? Doing your aesthetic might be more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, being a web development school, we have most of our students are actually college graduates. They've gone to college. They've worked in an industry for a couple years. The average age is about 30. So they're still young, but they have been in the industry for a while, doing whatever career they went to school for. Some of them not doing what they went to school for. And so kind of my advice, and also too, a lot of people are coming to our program because they want a career that's more marketable. They want to be able to make more money than just getting out of college making $30,000 starting out. That's what my life was like when I got out of college. And want to jump into a career where they can continue to grow and continue to move up in this industry. And so kind of my opinion personally is college is really important. We've seen that our students that don't have a college education don't do as well as our students that do have a college education. And I think it's because college teaches you to have critical thinking skills. It teaches you to look at the world around you and to ask questions and not just believe what you hear from everybody. To be curious, to have opinions and not be afraid to voice those opinions and be a person, not just a follower or a sheep. It's like, be the shepherd. And so I am a strong advocate of college, but I think one important thing though is getting a college degree is just go out, study whatever you want, you'll get a job. It doesn't really work that way. I studied sociology. It's the study of people in large groups, and most people don't even know what that is, and that's okay. Most sociologists go into social work, and that's pretty much it. And so I decided I didn't want to go into social work because it would work for the government, you don't even make a lot of money. Anyway, et cetera, et cetera. So, I studied sociology because that's what I love, but I also applied a business minor to that, and I did internships, and then I ended up falling into the career of working in entrepreneurship and working in tech because, as we had Mr. Roskilly talking, technology is what the world is today and how it's continuing to grow. And even me, I didn't even study technology, I still fell into it. So I guess kind of my just long story short, college is really important, but we need to teach our students and our kids that they need to also have a plan, not just go and study whatever they want and it'll all work out. Because it's the students that are getting the internships, the students that are being career focused and thinking about how the workplace is working, how to work in the industry that are being successful. Those are the ones getting the jobs. And the rest of them are just kind of, well, I got a degree, and they're mad at the university when the university have the jobs to teach you. It's your job to find employment.
So with something like Coding Campus, you would definitely encourage people to get their degree first because they are more successful. But what is the difference between what Coding Campus offers versus taking a more traditional path like going and getting a graduate degree?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. One thing I would say, as far as, while it is true that the majority of our students with college degrees are more successful than the ones without, I don't believe that it's impossible for someone without a college degree to be successful if they're just pursuing a technical education or technical certificate. But they do need to have the drive and the commitment and understanding responsibility and doing their part that honestly college does teach you. So if you feel like you've learned that in your life, I believe you can be successful. But back to your question, actually, sorry, did you say
Sure. So what would be the difference between going somewhere like Coding Campus or going for a technical certificate versus a traditional college degree or graduate degree?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why a lot of these Coding Campus is a boot camp, and you may have heard of these types of schools. They've popped up over the past 3 years all over the country. And one of the reasons why boot camps have been popping up partially is not enough people are getting computer science degrees. And then another thing in addition to that, our students who are getting computer science degrees, they're still learning not outdated technologies, but not the newest technologies. So they're learning C++ and JavaScript in school, which is really, really valuable. But a lot of newer companies are latching onto newer frameworks that help you to build products more quickly, more efficiently in some ways. And so I'm not saying that universities aren't teaching these newer technologies yet. I know that everyone is working hard to catch up on that. But a boot camp is a great opportunity to add to your previous CS degree, or even if you want to just focus on web development, that's a great way to jump into that field. Also too, I always tell people a boot camp and a CS degree are not the same thing. A CS degree is a broad study of all things computer science, and you can do so much with it. A boot camp education is just studying web development, going into that field, or there's some boot camps that just study data science. So it's faster because you're only studying one specific thing, and you're studying it based on what the industry needs. And so we work with different companies around Utah and talk to them about, what do you need, what kind of developers are you looking for, and then we try to develop our curriculum around that.
Okay, wonderful. So it's, like you said, more like a boot camp, so it can be going along with it and just as successful as a regular degree, which I think a lot of people could be looking for because of the way the economy is. And like you said, a lot of times you go into college and you go and get your degree, and then you find you're not making as much as you thought, or you feel like it's not as useful. Julie, as far as Prosperity 2020 program, I know it's focused very much on high school graduation. What resources are there out there to support young girls and men as well to graduate from high school and then eventually go into college?
Okay, let me add one more thing to what you guys were talking about, because I think it's really important, is that technology is part of so many careers, and so these developments and skills beyond our degrees are so necessary. So these resources like you're offering are really important because we're all using technology in our jobs. When I graduated from college in 1991, which was before some of you were born, I had just used very little computing at that point. And so it's been really important for me to stay on top of technology. It's a very important part of my job now, so just to add to that. As far as the graduation from high school, a lot of people are not aware that in Utah, we are only graduating 83% of our high school students. So that means that 4 out of 5 kids are graduating and 1 in 5 are not. That is very troubling because when you don't have your high school degree, you cut down a lot of options for your future. So that's something that we're working on, and it's high school graduation. You don't drop out as a junior. You start dropping out in 3rd grade, 4th grade when you can't read, or you start dropping out when you get discouraged from pursuing the things that you're passionate about, like math as a young lady in middle school. So we have set some benchmarks for reading. We want to see improved reading outcomes in 3rd and 4th grade, and we also want to see math outcomes that are better so that kids are on track for graduation and on track to take the jobs in STEM that are going to be a big part of our future. So those are really important. As far as the resources that Prosperity 2020 is trying to work on, we have recognized that a lot of kids are not graduating because they don't have a connection to school. So we think that having more academic advisors, coaches, and mentors in the school will help with that. So we have some initiatives, and we work a lot on funding, which is a bad word, with the state legislature to try to provide the resources that our public ed institutions need in order to see some of these gains. That help?
Yes, it does. Wonderful. Sunny, with Ardusat, do you focus on high school or college or both?
We started out focusing on high school, but it was always our desire to bring that curriculum down, because if you really want to impact a girl's perception or anyone's perception of science, technology, engineering, math, you start younger, not older. And so we've been working with as low as 4th grade here in the state. Science isn't taught till 4th grade, at least in my daughter's school, and I was super disappointed to hear that, because that's about the time that they start discovering that boys have cooties and they don't want to be the only girl, and that my daughter, she says, well, we watched the boys play football at recess. I'm like, why aren't you playing? So that's already happening in 3rd grade. So we really do want to start younger, and so that's. We think our lowest hanging fruit right now, as far as interest, is going to be high school, but we're trying to bring that down to the elementary school level.
Wonderful. How does this hands-on approach really benefit students, and how do you see it being beneficial specifically for young women to be able to discover science?
Sure. Well, the reality is if we continue to teach science and math and technology the same way we've been doing it, we'll yield the exact same results, which is only a very small percentage of our students graduate pursuing these degrees. So a recent statistic I saw is that out of 100 kids, 75% of them go in interested in pursuing some sort of science or STEM degree. And at the end of that, only 16 actually end up doing it. And of that 16, only one of them is a girl. And so somehow in that high school career, we managed to kill any passion for them to pursue it. And so we want to fix that. And one of the interesting ways that we do that in Ardusat is, we've got a connection to space. And, I think at one time or another, we all wondered what it would be like to be in space, or, look at the pictures that, that are taken from the ISS and think, wow, what would that be like to be there? And so we want to bring that experience to the classroom, and so we do that through a hands-on approach. But the other interesting thing is, boys and girls learn very differently. And right now, most of our U.S. education system is catered to the way boys learn. So a good example is you put a robot in a classroom, and a boy will tinker with that all day, and that's science, and that's how they like to learn. And girls like to learn when it's tied to a purpose or to a cause or making a difference. And so one of the nice things about our connection to space is that they get to collect real-world Earth data. So they might do an experiment of, I want to measure the ozone hole above my school and see if that's going to, does that mean that we need to wear more sunscreen, and what that impact has on our local environment. That's how girls like to learn. And so I think that, with our program, there's very much this hands-on element where you get to work with sensors, and you get to work with Arduinos, and you get to code and all that, but which appeals mostly to boys, or more to boys. But then you've got this thing where we develop a scientific experiment with you, and they get to think of, well, why do I want to know that, and what's the data, and how does that impact the world around me?
So a question just for everyone then, going along that note, what do you guys feel are the biggest challenges for young women, specifically in Utah, in really achieving their education goals? And just what advice would you give young women in general, and then specifically for STEM education or any career that they like?
So, problems that,
So we'll just break it down. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are for young women graduating?
Okay, so one thing that Susan Madsen had touched on earlier is that women start college, but they don't complete college. And we have the highest rates in the nation for that, which is interesting because you can imagine that some college but no degree is still helpful because you're learning things and it's useful, but you often incur the debt that you're going to have to pay off. And a degree is what you're seeking, hopefully, so that will help you pay off because you'll earn higher wages. Anyways, that's going around it a bit, but one of the biggest barriers to college completion happens to be math. And that's also a really important skill for STEM. So one of the things that people are doing, like these two, is helping get kids earlier on into thought processes, STEM thought processes that will help them with math. One of our initiatives last year, which was led by the former president of Weaver City University, who's now a senator, she got a bill passed to require another year of math in high school. So now you will have to have 4 years of math in high school. And that 4th year, your senior year, can be, if you choose to, can be complete a math requirement for college. And that's one of the biggest barriers to college graduation for men and women is the one required math class. So if you can get that over with in high school, you're more likely to graduate from college.
I really liked your comment about math too, because I just remembered how I almost didn't do the business minor because they used to require calculus, and then they dropped calculus, and I was like, hey, I'm in. And and that's just proof that no matter who you are, no matter even where I've gotten today, I still struggle with math too, and I still feel like, well, it's hard, I can't do it. And yeah, no, so I would definitely agree, encouraging our youth and just to keep. I like these requirements to you're required to do more math in high school now. Encouraging our kids to do that, and I think also too on the comment of how do we get women to stay involved and stick to college. When these reports were coming out, or they were, anyway, when these articles came out, because I remember when they came out about how Utah's the worst place for women to live, et cetera, et cetera. My first thought was like, well, that research is bogus. Partially because because of our society, Utah. I mean, the majority of us are not actually. No, sorry. I was going to say the majority of Utahns are Mormons, but it's really only 49%. But anyhow, but that culture. I mean, like Scott was saying, it was Scott, right? Scott Kelly. Awesome. Like Scott was saying, a lot of the LDS culture is really prominent in Utah, and so a lot of people have that idea. Well, the best place to be is in the home, which is important. But I really like how he brought up the comment. That's not the only thing that we need to be doing. Women should be an important integral part of society, and it's great that we want to take care of our kids and raise them. But I think that we also do need to instill in our daughters that it's good and it's important for you to have things that you're passionate about, to have something that you love to study and learn, and also even do for work, make a difference in the world, in the community. And so I think, just continuing to set those examples, continuing to have events like these, I think that will help a lot. And pulling more women in. I was sitting here also today thinking, this is the first event that WhiteHat has put on. And it's a little small, but that's okay. The first event is always small. And all the people here are great people to be here, but I was just thinking of the majority of the girls here and the women are the ones who are already thinking about STEM, that they're already pumped up for it, they want to do it, this is a great event to continue for that encouragement and keep going. But I think the next thing that we all can do too is talk to our peers, encourage our peers to come to events like this. Whether or not they want to really go into a STEM career, just to know that science, technology, engineering, and math is something that we all touch, that we all can get involved with, and all should have a basic knowledge about.
So you mentioned you had a daughter. What advice would you give her if she came and said, I'm really interested in starting a career in STEM, but I don't know where to go. I don't know how to start. What advice would you give?
Well, if she'll listen to me, that's all. But yeah, if she came and asked me that, I think the biggest thing for women who are going into STEM is you're kind of looking for people like you, right? You're kind of looking to relate to someone, and maybe a similar background. It could be race, it could be gender, it can be a lot of things. And I think if she can find good role models of women that have pursued the career that she wants to pursue, I think that's a great way to start. But the reality is, you know, I mean, like myself, I didn't graduate with this necessarily a STEM degree. I liked math, you know, and I liked these subjects, but I didn't because somehow I got in my head that I wasn't very good at it. And, you know, it was about the point where I was like 13 or 14. For some reason, I was really good at math, and then all of a sudden I hated math. And I think it was a very social thing that occurred. But, you know, you still can be in STEM without being an expert at math. In fact, last night I was talking to some contractors that are doing some work in our house, and they said, "Oh, you must be really good at math." And I was like, "I'm okay." You know, when they heard about my company, they were like, "I'm all right," you know, but I actually know some really smart people that are much better, and that's okay. You don't have to be the best at everything. And I think if you kind of come in with that attitude that you don't necessarily have to get A's and take all the hardest math classes to be in STEM, I think that might change the perception.
Have anything to add? What I find really interesting, I work as a math tutor as well, and one of the little girls I used to tutor, it was the same thing. She'd go, "Well, I just can't do it." I said, "Well, why not?" "Well, I don't know, I'm just not smart enough." And I always noticed that it's never that they're not smart enough, it's that they've determined that it's hard. They've decided, they've said to themselves, math is hard, so I don't get it. How do you feel we can kind of change those perceptions of it being difficult? Because it's not necessarily. It's, like Scott said, it's a building blocks. It's just logic. That's something that we try to teach our kids. I feel like in education is it's just logic and how to think critically. How do you feel we can teach young girls specifically, because I feel like that's where most of the problem lies, that science, technology, engineering, math, these fields, they're not hard. They're just hard work.
Sorry, this is one thing I love talking with people about, especially when they think about web development, just in general. I mean, what web development is you know, just building the web applications, building whatever you're seeing or interacting with on the web. So Facebook is a web application. And a lot of people are like, well, don't you have to know math to be good at computer science? Yes, it's lots of parts of computer science you do need to know really deep math. But when you're specifically for just like, you know, coding a website, you don't really need to know trigonometry. You just need to understand basic logic, and it's more about, I love to tell people that it's, you know, and STEM in general, really, it's more about problem solving and creativity than just math. Math, like we were saying, math is your engine, math is your tool for getting that done. But what we're doing is we're building things. We're building the plumbing for our toilets. You know, we're using math to do that. And when you think about it that way, think about math as your tool. How can I use it to solve this problem, or how can I be creative? But maybe that can help us to encourage kids, you know, to just think about it in a different way.
No, I think I already answered the question. So. yeah.
Going.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to open it up to questions if anyone has for our panelists up here. Quiet bunch.
I apologize if this was already covered. I came about halfway through your panel, which was lovely, by the way, thank you. It seems like a lot of what you're talking about is the sort of systemic nature of the difficulty lying within this paradigm shift of, like I said, it's not hard, it's hard work. It's about teaching people how to think critically. How do you address it when, for me, from my point of view, it's a systemic issue? And maybe that's the whole point, is you have this really, and for all the teachers, I'm sure, would agree, almost like failed infrastructure where we've gotten to a point where it's teaching to tests. We're not teaching kids how to think critically. We're concerned with, I need this many people to pass a test so that my school doesn't lose funding, because apparently if you're in trouble, we should take money away from you, because, you know, that's thinking critically. that, how do you deal with that? Where that's the point, it's like, I need to teach you how to do this thing, but I'd say probably honestly half the people I know are teachers, social workers, my best friend's a high school counselor, and this is the thing they constantly deal with is we're just trying to get through and pass tests. Like, so how do you deal with this idea besides having, if you're lucky enough to have a really great teacher or instructor, somebody who you can find, like how do you, as your individual organizations, how do you go about trying to say, hey, let's do this totally different thing that the system's not set up to do anything?
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer that one. So we work with schools, and I've been in education technology companies for the last 15 years, right? So education reform has been a discussion and a discussion and a discussion, and no one has the right answer, and it will take years and years and years to fix. We're not trying to solve that problem. What we're trying to solve is giving teachers resources so that they can make their classroom engaging. And so our biggest focus is on the teacher, not on the student, because we think students will like this anyway. But if we can overcome the teacher being maybe afraid or a little intimidated by the technology, then we think that if we can get that paradigm shift to happen, then we'll create a better education for the student. So, initially we thought, okay, well, why don't we just focus, let's just backwards write all the curriculum to write to Common Core and to these tests and things like that. And you can do that. I mean, a lot of companies are doing that. Pearson's doing it, and there's all sorts of other companies that are doing that, and they're making a ton of money. But, I don't think we're really improving education for the students. And so we decided to take a different approach, and let's say, let's just create a product and experiments and an experience that we think will be engaging, that the teachers can do, and then they'll engage with their students in, and then we'll figure out how it maps to, Common Core and all that, and then we can have those talking points, as we're selling the product. But the reality is I think that the teacher has the biggest influence on whether or not a student has a good education. And if, you get all the systems and you've got these tests and things like that, and that's only one tiny segment of what that classroom experience is like. And so we want to focus on that 90% where there is that student-teacher interaction.
So I can talk about that just briefly. So education reform has been around since the 70s. So we've all been trying to reform education for years and years. But I think that these individual actions that make a difference will make the difference in changing the sea tides. We're all products of our time, but we all produce our time. We make up the times that we live in. So these efforts to support teachers, which are the primary contact with our students, they're the people who motivate them. If you're writing curriculum for them, putting it on the web, it's accessible, which they're doing here, or giving them skills that they need in their classroom. There's talk about creating STEM endorsements for teachers, so teachers can get training in STEM fields in the summer. Those are all really important efforts that might address this systemic problem.
Other questions?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't see there.
I really like that question. I'd say that's something that that we are. What am I trying to say? I was going to say that maybe that boot camps are trying to fix, but maybe more is more retrospective. Though, so I'm trying to, for lack of a better phrase, like fix clean up the mess that government has instituted. Sorry, but I don't know how else to say that. and really, it's not. I strongly believe that it's not our teachers' fault. It's just really, and not that you said that, but it's education and learning is impossible to measure, and we try the best we can with tests because we need to be able to measure it so that we can, again, allocate funds where they need to go. And it's really just, I think, a really complicated problem that we, again, have been trying to solve for decades. So I think being flexible and coming up with new ideas, being open to these new ideas is really one thing that's going to continue to help society in general. But that's a really broader question beyond today's conversation.
Okay, another question.
So, we've already kind of established that education reform is not going to happen anytime soon. We've been trying to do it since the 70s.
I would say it's happening.
Yes.
It's slowly.
Happening.
Yeah, I would say we're always.
It's ongoing.
On a very individual notice, I work as a teacher, I work with special ed kids, and I hear every single day, I can't do it, it's hard, I don't like to read, it's boring, every day, dozens of times, no exaggeration, it's frustrating, and I can't think of anything to do. I feel like I've tried everything to get them to realize that it's not that hard. They can do it. It's not that boring. They just need to apply themselves. What specifically can be done by the teachers, by the educators, by the assistants, on an individual level, to help these kids realize that they can do this, and that it's not as boring and terrible as they think it is.
So if you're a teacher, you know about personalized learning, right? So making that the individual, creating a path that's very specific to the student. I mean, I can't imagine, you have a really difficult job where you have a classroom full of students and you have to engage them all in the same exact way. And you're going to have different backgrounds and different levels of skill and everything like that. So personalized learning, I think, there's a lot of discussion about it, and I almost feel kind of cheesy even like throwing out that buzzword. But there's something to be said about maybe some project-based learning where they interact with other students that might be somewhat like-minded as them. And so we actually tried to develop our curriculum resources where you break things up into groups. You don't have 30 kids working on the same Arduino, you have 2, maybe 3 students working together. And maybe that can create a better experience. But I mean, ultimately, getting past those, the social part of like, I can't do this, I'm not smart enough, or this is too hard, or I don't like it. That's a hard problem to overcome. But I think if you show some tiny successes in a smaller group setting, maybe that could have a more positive impact on the way they learn.
No? Okay. Well, that is it for our panels. You know what? Real quick.
Okay, sorry, I just had a quick comment, because it seems to keep coming up, this idea of people being like, especially with math, I can't do this, or like, I'm not smart enough to handle this. And I think part of it might even be like conditioning of like how we treat men and women, and like the type of praise that we give. Like, I think it's Carol Dweck who did research, like psychological research, on when you tell someone early on, like, oh, you're doing this because you're smart, they tend to not try to challenge themselves in the future because they're afraid of doing something wrong. Doing something wrong means that they're not smart anymore, versus praising when you see someone do something good, be like, oh, like that was really good how you worked hard on this. And looking more at the process of people doing, of how people are doing things rather than the end result gives especially kids more freedom to explore that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, that's a wonderful comment. Thank you. We are all out of time, but I don't know if you guys hang around. If you guys have any other individual questions, and we'll just move right along here so we can give a big round of applause.